Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Webinar Wednesdays. We're going to get started this morning. We have EMX Industries is going to put on a webinar for us this morning and talk about their product offerings. And this morning we have Cameron and Darlene from EMX. Hi.
Hey, how's everybody doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Are you ready to roll?
I am ready if you guys are ready. Yes, sir.
Okay, it looks like the participants are everybody's hopping in now, so we can get this thing started. And with no further ado, Cameron, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. Well, I appreciate everybody's time today. I know they're on the West Coast. It's early, so getting up to partake in a webinar, I really appreciate it. On the call today, again, my name is Cameron Moran. I've been with EMX for about a year now. I manage our access control division. We'll also have on the call Darlene Brooks, and she manages our inside sales team, and Katie Beswick. I'll be the one presenting today, but they'll be active on the chat. So if you guys have any questions at all, definitely use that chat board or that Q&A, and they'll make sure they answer any questions you may have. And if there's follow-up stuff after the presentation that we need to go over, we can do that also. So EMX Industries, today we're going to be talking a little bit about all of the products that we sell today, a nice overview of our full product portfolio, a little bit about EMX. We've been in business since the early 80s. We are based out of Cleveland, Ohio, and the majority, I would say over 80% of the products in which we sell today are made in the USA, made in Cleveland at our facility there. So something we take a lot of pride in. And you, as the installers, I hope you take a lot of pride in that as well, in the products that are made in the U.S. So the product categories that we're going to go over today, PhotoEyes, vehicle detectors, probably the things that we're most known for, as well as the free exit probes, overhead motion sensors, which is a relatively new product category for us, but that kind of falls in that free exit probe type situation there, as well as wireless edge link. So going over the PhotoEyes, there's basically two main categories of PhotoEyes that we look at today. And that's going to be a reflective PhotoEye and a thru-beam. The main PhotoEye that we have on the thru-beam side is that our IRB Mon. Has a large range. It's going to work for all of those UL monitoring methods, NEMA 4, solid housings, the RET, our reflective PhotoEye, 60-foot range, and we'll talk a little bit more in depth about all of these, as well as the NRNIR 50s. So hopefully you've all seen this, and it's something that we're starting to do more with all of our systems, especially on our PhotoEyes, is trying to make it as simple as possible for both a company like Encon, as well as the people that are actually out there installing the products as well. So the majority of the units in which we're going to sell today, we'll start with the IRBRT. We're kitting those units now. So rather than having to order that reflective PhotoEye and then the hood for the reflector as well as the hood for the unit separately, now those are all going to be included in a single box, single unit at a price competitive price point. The idea here is to try and make it as simple for the installers as possible. What we found in the past is the majority of the technical calls in which we were getting on products like this, they were able to be solved by putting a reflector hood on or putting that unit hood on. So by just having those all kitted together, it's everything you're going to need for the install. It's going to eliminate any of those issues you're really going to have and make those installs more perfect and make sure everything goes well for you. So a recurring theme, I would say, with all EMX products and what we're trying to do is trying to make it, again, as simple as possible for you and your team to install the product. So with the IRBRT, it's really capable of doing all means of monitoring that you're going to see out there. The normally closed, the 10K resistive, which is the primary one that people are using today, as well as 2-wire and 4-wire pulse across 2 and 3 frequency. So really going to work for anything that's out there. Here's an example of because it has all of those monitoring capabilities, some of the adjustments that can be made. Over here on the left, you'll see a big chart that kind of shows you, depending on what type of monitoring means you're going to be doing, one, where we're going to be sending those jumpers, which wiring diagram to follow, as well as where the dip switch settings are going to be. This is going to show you kind of where each of those jumpers are located. as well as the dip switch settings and what you're going to do. One of the big questions we get on this product as well that we didn't cover is confusion about the terminology on the terminal block. So you'll see here VRX as well as VTX. So VRX is for the receiver, VTX for the transmitter. The majority of the installs in which you're going to be doing, you're only going to be wiring into that receiver, but depending on which monitoring means you're going to be using, some would require you to wire in both. So that's why those are there. Something that throws a lot of people off with the product. So this is an example of that wiring diagram in which we talked about. This one here is for a 10K normally open. So you'll see it's going to show you where on that terminal block everything is terminated, as well as where you're going to be positioning each of those jumpers. The reason why we point this one out specifically is if you were to use this system on a non-monitored application, you would be able to wire it just like this, only you're going to switch where the 10K jumper is. So you're just going to move that over to non-10K, and then it would work for any non-UL application that's out there as well. So there's still a lot of them out there, so it's important to know that this product would work for those also. So looking at that, here's just some pro tips on basically setting up a perfect install. This one is a little bit of an overview, I'm sure, for everyone who's out there that has installed a reflective PhotoEye before, but I think it's important to go over. So in setting up that PhotoEye or that reflector to make sure it is in the optimal position, we're going to step 6 feet back away from the sensor itself. At that point, the reason why we're 6 feet away is anything closer than that, if we're within 5 feet, the system is meant to not see that reflector. The reason for that is in the past we've seen where people had taped the reflector actually to the sensor itself and just thrown it in the control box. So it's a way to make sure that people are actually going out there and putting the safety. Because if it's in the control box or it's just set off to the side, obviously it's not protecting anybody and not doing what it's supposed to. So for this alignment, basically we're going to go left to right. We're going to find the point in which farthest left and farthest right in which it basically is triggering that relay. And then we're going to basically find the middle point between those 2 points. We're going to do the same thing for north and south or up and down, finding the highest point in which it triggers the relay, lowest point in which it triggers the relay, finding the middle point. So you're basically making kind of a crosshair. Find that middle point. We're going to walk back to where we're going to actually mount that reflector. And once we're at that point, we're going to kind of do the same thing as well as along the way to make sure we're mounting it at that center point. If we have it mounted off to the side too much, what's going to happen is you'll get the installation done. It's going to work. But then once you have things like rain, snow, fog, it's not an ideal. It's off to the side. So it could potentially not see that reflector and cause issues for you down the road. This is the biggest thing that people don't understand with those reflective PhotoEyes, and it's excess gain, which really is the measure of the amount of light signal in excess of the minimum amount necessary to trigger the relay. Basically what it's saying is once we hit that reflector, what percent of that has to get back to the sensor for it to maintain that detection. So what we're looking for is a 10-to-1 ratio, or 10% of that reflection needs to get back to the PhotoEye itself. If we have too much excess gain, what's going to cause problems if you have a shiny car, if you have shiny objects in the area, it could potentially see those just as it does a reflector, reflect back, and basically it's not going to see that vehicle there and have the gate come closed on them. If we have too little, like we had talked about before, if there's snow, fog, rain, those things are going to cause issues for you down the road. So that 10-to-1 ratio is very important. How we're going to get that perfect install is very simple, actually. So basically what we're going to do is we're just going to cover up 90% of that reflector when we're doing our initial install. So this is something your guys can keep in their toolbox if they want to, one that was already pre-taped. If there's 2 guys doing it, you could just cover it up with your hand to only show 10% of it. But basically what we want to do here is dial that potentiometer all the way down, have the reflector so 10% is showing, and we're just going to turn that potentiometer up until it finally clicks the relay. That way we're right at that 10%. Once we remove all of the tape, we're going to get a good read every time. So very valuable resource there to do something like this. It's going to make sure that everything's going to work well for you. You're not going to have those return calls like a lot of people see today. All right, so it's no secret on this product. Our primary competition is a product called the Omron E3K. And so this is just a nice breakdown of kind of what differentiates the IRBRT to that product. And as you'll see, and I won't go through all of them, but there's a lot of benefits to the RET that aren't out there with the E3K. Primarily, we have almost double the detection range or operating range. We're going to work better in some of those difficult conditions, as well as the ability to use a bunch of different monitoring methods, whether it's being kind of pigeonholed to that normally closed or normally open. And then, just as we had talked about earlier, having the ability to have all of those units kitted together to make it as simple as possible for an install. And it's black and not, you know, that yellow color. So that's always one of the things that we hear about that product and what people would like to see differently. Other reflective photo eyes that we have out there is our NRNIR product line. Different than what you see with the RETs, these are not able to be adjusted from a monitoring method or a non-monitoring method. So the NIR 50 would just be for non-monitored solution, where that NIR 325 would be for the UL 325 monitoring. Both ranges on these is going to be that 50 feet. All right, so a little true and false here. Just best practices and things to understand is if a gate operator calls for a 10K monitoring on the PhotoEye, it is okay for an installer to take a 10K resistor and wire it in parallel with normally open contacts on the relay. So that is false. Something that I've actually seen in the past where someone had brought out a unit, not our unit, but a competitor's unit, to show me it, and it actually had on the top of the box that 10K resistor taped to the box. So definitely important we're not doing that. That's not how that 10K is meant to be done. So make sure you're using the correct 10K monitoring methods there. Another one for you, if I buy a PhotoEye that says it's UL 325 approved on the PhotoEye supplier's website, am I able to use that PhotoEye for a gate operator as long as I make sure that I am using the correct monitoring method? So that one is false as well. So a little background, in order for a system to be monitoring or be compliant, that PhotoEye has to be submitted with the gate operator for testing through UL. So just because it's a UL operator, 325 operator and UL 325 PhotoEye, that does not mean that they're compatible with each other. They could still work out there, and the majority of applications you're going to see they're going to work, but it's important to make sure you're referencing the gate operator's manual to see what those approved safety devices are. All right, so moving on to our thru-beam. So that's our primary product in that product line is going to be our IRB Mon. So with this, as you can see in the two images here, we have those available in two different hoods, a steel hood as well as the aluminum, which I believe is the gold. These are also kitted as well. So you're able to order those now to have those all included in one box, either one, whatever you guys wanted to do as far as the steel hoods or the aluminum hoods, you're able to have those all kind of included. So just like what we talked about with the IRBRT, the Mon is capable of doing multiple different monitoring methods. So we got normally closed, we have that 10K resistive, 2-wire and 4-wire pulse. Again, just like we talked about with the RET, if we wanted to use this on a UL application and wanted to use the normally open contact without the 10K resistor, it's just a matter of moving that dip switch, just like we did with the RET. So what sets EMX PhotoEyes apart from other things that are out there? One, it's going to be our flexibility. So like we talked about, our ability to one system that you can stock on your truck, it's going to work for really anything that's out there because of how many different monitoring methods that it has available to you. UL approved with most gate operators, so we've taken the time and have worked with all those gate operators to make sure that anyone that we're able to, that we have those monitoring methods or that are UL compliant with them. And we meet the highest levels of performance. Just like we talked about with RET, we're going above and beyond kind of what's out there, having larger ranges, having a multitude of different adjustments that you're able to make with the sensor. And a lot of that comes down to being made in the USA. Because we are not relying on a third party or someone else to manufacture those products, we're doing all the quality control ourselves, making sure that everything is working perfectly fine. All right, So next category we're going to talk about is our inductive loops. This is something with Encon we've partnered with as of recently, specifically on the ULT-MVP. And it's a product we're really excited about, and they are as well. And I think you'll see once we talk about it, there's a lot of advantages to a product like that. So going down the line, one of our legacy products or something we've had out there for a long time is our MVP-DTEK. People like that aluminum housing and its ability to use multi-voltage. So 12 volts DC all the way up to 240 volts AC. We do have adjustable sensitivity, and it's a dual relay. The LP-DTEK, basically it's that same product, but it's available in just a lower voltage. So it's a little bit of a cost savings over the MVP-DTEK. And the reason for that is just because it doesn't offer that wide range of voltages. So the nice thing with the ULT-MVP and why it's such a great product for us, and Encon sees that as well, is one, it has that multi-voltage just like the MVP-DTEK. It has the adjustable sensitivity, but it also has a sensitivity display. So this makes it a lot easier for when you're out there installing this product to make sure we're setting it to exactly where we want it. So I'll use the example of if you are out there installing a loop on your own and you have this vehicle detector plugged in and you say, I want at this specific point it to trigger. You could drive your vehicle out, park it, see where it's reading on the screen, adjust your sensitivity to that specific number to make sure that you're not going to get any detections until that vehicle is exactly in that spot. Another nice piece of that sensitivity display is if we're doing troubleshooting and for some reason we're getting some type of interference. If you're using a product that doesn't have that visual display, it's kind of a crapshoot and trying to figure out what's causing it, what's causing that that interference, or why the gate potentially is holding open. We could look at that display and maybe it's showing like a 7 or an 8, or maybe something's flickering on it. We can move objects in and out of that field to find out what's causing that issue for you. And then the detect on stop feature, which is something a lot of our vehicle detectors have, and it's kind of proprietary to us. So with our vehicle detectors, we have the ability to detect, one, a moving object as well as a stopped object. So where this really comes into play is specifically in like a drive-through type application or a close quarters application, where we want to, as a vehicle comes through that drive-through, we don't want to detect vehicles that are just driving through, making loops. We can basically only detect once they've actually stopped at the window or stopped to place the order, making for more accurate counting in those type of an application. Moving on to the ULT-PLG, so it's that 12 to 24 volt range, has all of those same things that make the ULT-MVP so great, but it's able to be plug-in with that 10-pin plug-in connector. And then we have the ULT-2, which again, shorter range as far as our voltage, has all those same sensitivity display, detect on stop. The difference here is that terminal block in the back, it's a 7-position detachable screw terminal block. So we can actually pop that off, wire everything in, and then plug it in. It makes it a lot easier for the installer in getting that put in. All right, so what sets EMX loop detectors apart? So one is going to be our flexibility. So the ability, just like we talked about, and again, I hope you see this as a recurring theme on all EMX products, is we're putting products out there where you can stock potentially one on your shelf, one on your truck, and it's going to work for the majority of the applications in which you're going to see out there. Instead of having to stock so many different products, it allows you to kind of consolidate a lot of those things. So flexibility, true multi-voltage with the MVPs in that DTEK as well as the ULT version. So a 12 volts DC all the way up to 240 volts AC. The ultrameter display, so visually being able to see where our readouts are for that vehicle detector. That detect on stop feature, again, being able to distinguish between a stopped vehicle and a moving vehicle. And then basically this is just kind of a breakdown of what we talked about, how many things you can replace with those multi-voltage units. You're not relying on a 1 relay, 2 relay, or a high voltage, low voltage version. One sensor that's going to kind of be able to fit all of those needs. Here's a nice breakdown, or kind of shows you, showing one of our competitors in the Reno or the Everly products. When we talk about a product like the MVP-DTEK as well as the ULT-MVP, with just stocking one of those products, you're able to replace a multitude of different Reno or Everly products, and that goes across all manufacturers as well. So it's a great product. Could be a cost saver for you and make things a lot more simple for you instead of having to learn all these individual part numbers and understand how to wire or how to install those. All right, so this is a product in the LRS single cut vehicle detector. You may be familiar with it as the CS303. So it was a good product for us. We released it, I believe, 2 years ago, but there was some shortcomings in the product. This product was developed by previous ownership. Once the new ownership, myself, as well as some other people came on board, we saw those limitations of the product, and we basically decided to revamp that entire product, rewrite all the code to basically fill in the blanks as far as maybe some of those issues that people had in the past with this product. So we're excited to have this released back out in the field. We're actually in the process of doing testing right now, and all of the testing has been going fantastic. We should have this in the next few months available to everybody out there. Basically what it is a single cut loop where we can lay that flat pack, or you can drop that DB or that direct burial probe, and it's going to put out a range of about 5 feet by 5 feet by 5 feet, like a little bubble essentially. That way, instead of having to do all the cuts of a loop, you could cut this single cut, lay it in, and it's going to be able to detect the vehicle, do that detect on stop like our vehicle detectors do as well. So something we're excited about, and once we have more information, we'll be kind of releasing that out to everybody. So going into some of our probes, this is a product that we've had out there for a little while now, but we have, if you're familiar with our CS202, we have obsoleted that product. The reason for that is because the VMD202 does everything that did with some additional features. So with that VMD202, it's a 5-wire single piece detector, adjustable sensitivity from the lead end of the remote. So similar or different from some of the competition that we see out there, if there's a probe that's installed and an adjustment and sensitivity needs to be made down the road, you would actually have to dig that unit up, open it up, make the adjustments, and basically rebury it. With this product in the VMD, all those adjustments are made at that control box. So if for any reason the sensitivity was off or we need to make an adjustment to it, we can adjust that sensitivity by just basically opening the control box, adjusting that potentiometer, doing a relearn, and it's good to go. Range on that is that 12-foot maximum, but I'm sure what you guys have seen as well is if you have cross traffic or a busy highway that's closed, sometimes it can bleed out and go farther than that. So having the ability to make those sensitivity adjustments is very important. The majority of the applications, no adjustment is necessary. It's going to be out of the box the same as what that CS202 was, but with the ability to make adjustments to it. Another product we have is the CS101. So the difference with this product, it does have that same sensitivity adjustments that you're able to make, but it's two separate pieces. And you're going to wire this into like an 11-pin connector. So it's a little bit more labor intensive as far as the install, but we still have that adjustability, that sensitivity adjustment to make it as easy as possible to make sure we're kind of fine-tuning it down to the application. Again, out of the box, this is going to work for the majority of the applications out there. All right, and this is one that I am very excited about. It's something that we've recently developed in products like the Raven and the Owl. Both very new for us. I believe yesterday we actually just released our first e-blast on the product to kind of get the word out there. So my previous experience has been with products like this in motion sensors and overhead presence sensors. So one of the things when we came to EMX is to develop something that could be competitive in that marketplace. And I think we've done that with the Raven and the Owl. So the Hawk 2, we have a good, better, best comparison here. The Hawk is something we've had out there for quite some time. It is for all labor-intensive purposes, a bare bones Doppler radar motion sensor. So really what it's meant to do is to kind of fill the need of like a free entry, free exit probe. So with this sensor, we can basically look for motion. We can, as someone comes in, someone comes out, we can activate, trigger that relay. We don't have the ability to differentiate between people and vehicles or cross traffic, but we have a large detection range and it works well for that. So if we're not trying to differentiate between a vehicle or a person, this would be a great product for you. And it's at a very reasonable price point because of what it's able to do. The Raven, which is our next level up, this one is a Doppler radar motion sensor that's able to do both directional traffic as well as rejection of cross traffic and differentiate between people and vehicles. So different than some of the other products or competitor products that are out there, what makes this one so unique is its ability to have two separate relays. So with competitor products out there, and this is an application that we see all the time, or that I've seen all the time, is where you have a gate or a roll-up door where they want to have a vehicle as it drives up is going to trigger that gate or that door to allow it to open, but they also want to be able to trigger a light on the other side. So if there's pedestrian traffic over there, they want to be able to warn someone that there's someone there and walking across. Because we have two separate relays, we're able to do all of that with just that single unit. Rather than the competitor product, you would have to have one of those on each side of the door, basically monitoring and adjusted separately for picking up pedestrian traffic and separately for picking up vehicle traffic. So it's a big cost savings there. This product is able to be programmed via remote or manual. I would always recommend using the remote. It's much, much simpler. If you're trying to program that thing when it's up on a door or up on above a gate, you're going to be trying to count blinks as you're manually entering this. The remote is definitely the way to go. And it's a universal remote where if you have that remote, it's going to work for this one as well as any of the 100 other ones you may install down the road. So great product there. So that's the better option we have. It's a very, very good motion only sensor. The OWL, which we have listed here as the best solution or best option, is a microwave and infrared sensor. So microwave is meant to pick up motion, and then that presence or infrared is meant to basically pick up if someone or something stops in that field. So with that, it's able to do the differentiation between people and vehicles, just like the Raven. It's able to reject cross traffic. So if there's vehicles moving across at like a busy highway, it's going to avoid those until it actually turns towards the sensor itself. Range on this is the 11.5 feet up to 21.3 feet. So a large range there. The safety portion of it, or that presence, it's not going to be compliant with UL-325 as of today. That's just because infrared is not able to be used, or not a approved safety technology, if you will, for overhead. So this would be going above and beyond the safety of a typical installation. So those are our three options we have there. Something that I'm very excited about, and I think it's going to work well for a lot of people out there. And if you did try it, you'd be very happy with it also. Next product we're going to go over is just our wireless edge link. So the Well 200 we've had out there for quite some time. It is really the premier, or in our opinion, and from the testing that we've seen, the best transmitter receiver solution out there for a wireless edge. So one receiver, which is this upper image, is able to have 4 of these transmitters programmed to it at one time. So range on this is going to be up to 200 feet line of sight. And again, understand that's in a perfect application or a perfect install. So as you get out there in the field, if there is, cell phone towers close by, or, there's interferences around you, those things will cause that to shrink down from that 200 feet. And so to have a perfect install, there's a few little points that I would bring up to you. One, when we install this receiver, it's important to install that on the outside of the control box. We want a direct line of sight from that receiver to all of the transmitters in which you are programming to it. That's going to eliminate a lot of those drops or issues where maybe it's not picking up a transmitter. The other thing I would say is for that receiving unit mounted outside of the control box, we also want to mount it slightly up, up where the top part is actually showing. The reason for that is the actual antenna that is looking for those transmitters is at the top of that receiver. So if you mount it so an inch or so is exposed above that control box, where that actual piece has a line of sight to all the transmitters, that's going to be ideal for making sure that everything's going to work perfect every time. For monitoring methods, and I know I'm skipping around on this slide a little bit, but we have normally closed, 10 carry cross normally open, and 4-wire pulse, different than what we talked about with our IRB Mon and our IRBRT. This is not able to be used on a non-monitored solution. So we're not able to wire this in. It has to have that 10K, essentially, or the 4-wire pulse. It has to have monitoring. So receiver, 12 to 24 volts AC/DC. The transmitter is going to take 2 AA batteries. Make sure those are lithium batteries. Lifespan on those is typically about 2 years. So if you have installs that are out there, make sure you're kind of rechecking on those at about that 2-year point to make sure that you're not going to have those calls from your customer that are upset that something's not working. All right, so what is coming next from EMX? So the 303, or that relaunch we talked about, the LRS, end of August, we're looking to have that available to you. Well kits, so we have recently done some firmware updates, and those should be releasing now. No real big changes there. The only thing I would say with this is just some of the terminology on the actual circuit boards themselves, where they used to say pulse open or pulse close. Now it's going to say, or for open or close, it'll say relay 1 and relay 2. So there's a lot of confusion on that when we were getting tech calls and hearing from the customers. So that's something that has been changed. The motion sensor or microwave sensor we talked about, and the Raven, the Owl, those are available now and were recently released. And then the dual technology sensor we talked about is available now as well. One thing that I forgot to mention, and I won't jump back in the slides here, but it's something that was recently updated and something that is going to make things simpler for everybody, but something that if you are not aware of it, it's going to cause some frustration when you're going to have to look back at that user manual. So when we talk about the IRB Mon, we made some slight changes to it. The biggest change that you will see is we removed the jumper for the 10K. What we were seeing a lot of times is people were misplacing that jumper. It was falling off. They were basically calling us or calling you guys and saying, hey, this never shipped with my unit, or I don't know where this 10K jumper is. It was never there. So because of that, if that jumper were to be lost, you're in trouble. You basically got to find another jumper. So what we've done is remove that jumper and switch that over to a dip switch setting for 10K on or 10K off. So again, if you guys at Encon, if you guys get a call on that and people are saying my circuit board is messed up because they forgot to put a jumper placement here, that's not the case. It's just that that's been moved to a dip switch setting. All of the literature, it's all been updated to show that in the user guide. All right. So along with kind of packaging all those units and kind of having them as kits, one of the things we're doing as well now is trying to make it as simple for companies like Encon as well as the installers themselves. And that's going to be with our packaging. So with the packaging, what we had in the past and what I think a lot of the competition out there has is these plain white boxes that have a little barcode that say, you know, IRBRT or whatever the product may be. Not a lot of description there. So if you guys are bringing on new employees, it's pretty difficult for them to understand what's what. They're just seeing white boxes until they fully understand everything. Yeah. So with the new packaging, what you're going to see here is, one, it's going to pop. It's a little more colorful. So hopefully that draws your eyes to it. But it's also going to have kind of the bullet points or the cut sheet points on there. Yes. So you see Jeff kind of holding that up. It's going to have the bullet points to say, okay, IRBRT, here's the 3 or 4 things that you need to know to speak like you know what you're talking about on the product. So little descriptions of what's there. And then this QR code on here, you would actually be able to scan that, and that's going to bring up that user guide that's in there as well. So again, trying to make it as user-friendly as possible and aesthetic as possible. So with those, we also have the field support webinar trainings that we're doing like we are today, trying to give you guys all the resources that we can to make you guys as deadly out there as possible. And digital animations for counter displays, which we're kind of working on now. and we'll start to roll those things out once we have them available to you guys at Encon. So all my contact information is listed here below. For anybody on the call, my cell phone, that direct number is my cell phone. Definitely do not ever hesitate to give me a call if it's the simplest question, or you're working through an application and you aren't sure if this particular item is going to work over this particular item. Don't ever hesitate to give us a call. That's what my job is, to be a resource for you guys and to help you any way that we can. So I look forward to hearing from everybody. Is there any, I haven't been monitoring, because I know Darlene was kind of watching I don't see anything open as far as questions, but does anybody have any questions for me or the people at EMX? All right, well, I know that I'll do my best to reach out to everybody after this presentation. Because I know in these type of settings, it's somewhat difficult to ask questions. So we'll make sure we're following back with everyone and answering any questions you may have. Obviously, for anything in regards to pricing, reach out to the guys at Encon. They're going to take care of you and are a great partner of us. So we really appreciate everything they do and allowing us to present today. And if that's it, I really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Cameron and Darlene. We really appreciate you guys spending the time with us. Thank you to everyone that attended. We know you're very busy, and we appreciate your valuable time that you've spent with us this morning. And we hope that this is a tool that can help you out for sales and technical support in the future. The majority of these products that we went over today are stock items here at Encon, so we can get these to you immediately. If not, a couple of days, bam, you got them. I just want to say thank you again to everyone for attending, and to the people at EMX for their time. We really appreciate it. And Webinar Wednesdays will continue. And just go to our website and check out what's coming next. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and hope you have a great day.
Much
Thank
appreciated.
you. Have a good one.